Welcome, welcome to our Saturday Simulcast. Easy for me to say, our June 21st Summer Solstice Edition. And Brian Neubert will be joining us shortly from Westfield, Carmel. He's at Charlie Hughes in a big weekend event for basketball. A couple of reminders before we get started today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And, of course, you can leave a positive review. If you don't want to leave a positive review, just keep quiet. But check out our Golden Black. That's for our Golden Black Radio and YouTube listeners. Use promo code PU1 at checkout when purchasing a monthly subscription to goldenblack.com. You'll get 2 months for $1 and subscribe to the goldenblack.com on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and make sure you enable alerts. A reminder, too, our thank you also to our sponsor, Union Club Hotel, Boiler House Prime Restaurant, going strong at the Pete Dye Clubhouse. Really a lot of great reviews on that. And if you get the chance, a great place to spend a summer evening in addition to all the things that are going on at the Union Club Hotel. Okay, we're going to bring on basketball-laden Brian Neubert, who is live, at least live on record. And are you in Westfield or you look like you might be in Carmel?
Carmel High School.
Carmel High School.
The event this weekend is at Carmel and Westfield High Schools and some other gyms, but it originates at Carmel here. So the first day lays out great. It's 2 games of Noah Smith, 2 games of Luke Ertl, and then I'm out of here. So this is pretty easy. So me and Dub are down here covering this all weekend, and we'll have coverage all throughout the weekend on our site.
Yeah, you can look for that after you listen in or watch this. It will be available on, like I said, on our site. All right, tell me what you talk about Noah Smith, the forward from Plainfield, one of the guys that you've liked and talked about for a while. Purdue has yet to offer. You said that every eyeball, maybe with the exception of Matt Painter, will be on him this weekend in his games. But talk about what his progression has been and what you like so much about him.
Yeah, first off, I want to apologize for the whistles. I asked them to not call fouls while we're on here, and they kind of shrugged and didn't agree to the terms.
They'd have to swallow the whistle, but go ahead.
So Noah Smith, it's not like he's a really highly recruited guy at this point. So it's not like there's a ton of coaches watching him, but he's kind of that guy who's like a mid to high mid-major sort of guy right now. That high majors are just probably getting around to watching, Purdue included. They've been on him for a long time, but I don't know how much they've gone out of their way to watch him in the context of, is this a guy we're going to offer? He was really good at Purdue's team camp last week, like really good, like offer good. And Purdue's obviously going to follow up here to see how he plays this weekend and then in July. And I think that he's very much an offer candidate. And I don't know if Matt Painter will be here this weekend. He's in Tennessee, first off, to watch Trey Thompson, and then he's doing some national stuff elsewhere. But Purdue will be at all his games. Notre Dame is here right now. A bunch of MAC coaches are here. But he's a four-man, ultimately long-term, really good shooter, really good touch around the basket, guy who can score, and things like that. Purdue's been looking to expand its board at the forward position. I still think they're going to get Trey Thompson, but they got to be ready for anything. So you've seen them offer a number of different forwards just to make sure they have, as Danny Hope would have called it, a robust pool size. So Noah Smith's very much on that radar, and we will see how he plays this weekend.
It's hard to beat a Danny Hope reference on our goldenblack.com Saturday simulcast, but always appreciated. All right, so who are some other guys? You've outlined it and boiling over. You don't need to go through the whole list, but some other guys you're keeping an eye on, you and Dub, this weekend, and guys that you're going to be not only filming but watching closely.
Halftime comes just in time for this answer.
Perfect.
So Luke Ertl's playing here this weekend. I assume he's had an ankle issue, but as far as I know, he's playing. By the time you watch this, all of his games will have taken place, so that might be a very outdated answer I just gave you. So watching him as he has this big spring and summer. And then Isaiah Hill from Pike is a 2027 center who is Purdue's priority for that class, and a guy who Purdue's been way out in front on, and we'll see who else comes in on him this summer. You probably want to keep the Dukes and Kentuckys away as long as you can. As long as that happens, I think Purdue's in a great spot with him. So really those two guys, there's a ton of underclassmen here. It's really hard anymore to cover more than two classes at once. So I'm not paying a ton of attention to 2028 prospects quite yet. We'll have Doug go over and do a story on Noah Washington, who just got offered by Purdue last week. But really, Noah Smith, Isaiah Hill, Luke Ertl are kind of the big three here that we'll be really covering.
Give us a thumbnail on Isaiah Hill in terms of what, I mean, obviously he's a big-time prospect, but what you like about him and what, maybe a comparative of sorts or what he's like as a player.
Yeah, big, tall, long, physically undeveloped, really skilled. He's legit 7 foot, I think, but he's probably only about 200 pounds. So when he gets mass and strength on that body, he's an unbelievable shot blocker. He's a special shot blocking prospect. He can shoot threes, he can shoot fadeaways, he can post up a little bit. All that stuff will get unlocked even more as his body develops. But there's not a whole lot of teams out there with a better track record of developing big men than Purdue, and that's going to be a huge part of their sales pitch here. This is a guy who should be a national recruit, should be like a top 50, top 30, top 40 type of player. I know that was a weird cadence of the ranking tiers. I just reeled off.
Not necessarily in chronological order. That's all right.
Personally, I think that when all is said and done with him in his high school career at Pike, I think you might end up looking at this guy as the best shot blocker prospect Indiana has produced since Greg Odom. I think he's that level of shot blocker. And as his body develops, he'll become a rebounder. He'll become more of an interior scoring threat. And, just a potentially really big-time prospect.
All right, speaking of shot blockers, or at least good inside players, guys that Purdue's he's on the tip of every Purdue fan's tongue, so to speak. Daniel Jacobson, some breaking news as of this recording, but it won't be by the time most people watch or listen to this. That sounds like he's made the U19 team, but just talk about that and the importance of that in his development.
I have to credit you for an unbelievable transition. That was perfect.
Thank you. That was good.
Well done.
You served me up. You served me up perfectly.
That is a 5-star transition.
Thank you.
I have to say. No, Daniel Jacobson, I think this is perfect for him because he has to get back into playing shape. He's added all this weight. He has to acclimate. He's up to 250 plus pounds now. He has to acclimate to his new body. He has to get in playing shape after a year recovering from injury, and for him to have actual high stakes games against really good players to do that, in addition to just the experience of having to compete against all these good players for his spot on the team, I think it's a best case scenario. It's absolutely perfect for him. You couldn't have scripted a better opportunity for him. This is way more valuable to me, in my opinion anyway, than him being on campus for 2 practices a week. With an incomplete roster, as Purdue's roster currently is right now, other than outside of Daniel Jacobson. Omer Meyer is not on campus. Oscar Clough's not on campus. Raleigh Burgess is hurt. So I think this is the best case scenario for Daniel Jacobson and Purdue alike, because Jacobson is a guy who is going to be a really important player for him or for them this season. I think if there's a breakout guy on this roster, the way Trey Kaufman-Wren was last year, Caleb Swanigan was years ago, even with Oscar Clough taking up presumably half those minutes, I think Daniel Jacobson could be that guy. Now, expecting him to do that in year 1 after the injury might be a big ask. Maybe that's a junior year type of thing, but I think this is a great situation for him, a great situation for Purdue, and something that's going to make him way better this year than he would have otherwise have been.
When you look at his, and you've been able to watch him a little bit in practice because it started practice, but just that weight gain and what that means to him as a player. I mean, outside of stating the obvious, he's going to be able to be more physical inside, et cetera. But how is he? If you can tell yet, and I know you haven't been able to watch him a ton, but what does that change in his game? Just strength? Is it as simple as that? How do you view that with respect to Daniel Jacobson?
Well, it kind of changes everything. It changes his ability to absorb contact. It changes it makes him really hard to move, which is really important for those big guys, as Purdue well knows. But I think there's got to be some confidence that's involved in it too, because when you're tall and skinny, what happens in basketball is the people who are guarding you think you're an easy target, and they just try to bully you, and they just try to take the fight to you. And I think the more you can flip that on them and bully them, I think it just is a huge deal for confidence and a huge empowerment mechanism for players, especially when they're young players, especially when they're big guys, where they're often associated with imposing their will physically. I think it's absolutely essential. It probably insulates them a little bit from injury, too, when you're tall and skinny and, long like he is. The angles get complicated, as he kind of learned the hard way 2 games into his freshman season. So I just think you could talk all day about what this means for him and his development.
I love to watch your eyes, because I know you're multitasking right now. You're watching and you're talking coherently about what's going on. That's what makes you good at what you do. But
I'm also trying to keep stats.
Yeah, yeah. And I was going to say, you don't want to get whacked in the side of the head with a basketball. All right,
I've been hit with much worse.
Yeah. Want to ask you a little bit about another subject, and that is obviously Monday. You'll have a chance to meet with Mike Bobinski and get a little bit more on the House settlement. And I know you probably haven't prepped a ton just yet for this, but what are some of the things you want to find out from Mike as you have the opportunity to speak with him about the new world of college sports?
Well, the obvious question that is unlikely to get answered is, how is Purdue going to divide their $20.5 million among their sports? I don't think a lot of schools are going to publicize that for good reason, but I think that's obviously what everybody would most want to know. There are important questions about, where's the money coming from? How does this change the athletic department? Are sports in jeopardy? Are people's jobs in jeopardy? Because every dollar now means a little bit more. It's kind of a little bit like COVID in that sense, where you have to free up as much money as possible. The other part of it too is, one question I want to ask him is, and I probably shouldn't publicize my questions before I ask them, is why should people believe enforcement is going to work under this new model? The NCAA has a long history, and Mike's always been a good soldier for the NCAA, so he'll probably say all the right things, but the NCAA's got a long, glorious history of not being able to enforce its own rules. And now the revenue sharing is part of compensation for athletes, but NIL is going to remain in place, and that's where people can make up the difference under the table, presumably. But this enforcement arm is built to take that away. And I just kind of want to know, why should people believe that? Because the NCAA's history is people do what they want and get away with it. And so that's kind of a topic I want to hit on a little bit. So that.
Yeah, I think it
scored, by the way.
There you go. I think the other thing, too, we've already seen signs of this. I think it was at UTEP, Louisiana Monroe have already dropped tennis. Other sports are sure to follow. I think Purdue wants to keep everything intact. That's stating the obvious, but it's going to be interesting to see over time where some of these sports go because of that money crunch, especially in the group of five or smaller power five, smaller FBS schools.
Yeah, Purdue's not going to drop sports. They've only got 18 of them anyway, so it's not like this is Ohio State where you've got 36 varsity sports.
Yeah,
a lot of those are fringe, what people wouldn't necessarily call sports. I don't want to list any. I don't want to get in trouble with cheerleading and skeet shooting diehards, but technically, officially, for bookkeeping purposes, those are varsity sports. Now, what Purdue, might happen is the level of investment in other sports naturally, comes under the microscope. Not that Purdue has a ton of sports that they have to break the bank on. The good news and the bad news for Purdue, or the bad news first off, is typically, other than volleyball and pockets here and there, and like wrestling and track and field with some individuals, baseball's had a good year here and there. Typically, Purdue has been pretty mediocre in Olympic sports. Golf won a national title. So that's kind of the bad news. But the good news, too, is that historically, other than a few pockets here and there, a few sports here and there, you've been pretty mediocre. And what that means then is there isn't that natural compulsion to invest in some of those Olympic sports the way Iowa will have to in wrestling, or Minnesota will have to in hockey. Theoretically, that means you can dedicate more money to football and basketball the way you need to. But those are decisions Purdue's going to have to make. Title IX litigation is going to ultimately shape a lot of this,
No doubt.
too. So we will see ultimately what this looks like when all is said and done. And there's still some balls in the air in terms of unknowns that, Mike Bobinski's not necessarily going to have complete answers to, but that's kind of the lay of the land in terms of how this is going to work out for Purdue.
All right, last question. FanDuel is a sponsor of our message boards, and they'll be making the call in OKC and the Pacers in Game 7. I don't know how much of a chance you had to watch Thursday night's game, but you're a pretty astute viewer of NBA basketball. Obviously, the Pacers boat raced OKC on Thursday night. What are you seeing on Sunday? If you're a Pacer fan, are you encouraged by what you saw? You should be encouraged, I guess, because you won Game 6. But can they beat OKC in Game 7 in your view?
They can, sure. I think all the pressure is on Oklahoma City, obviously. I think that the Pacers needed to win Game 1 or Game 2 in Oklahoma City to make sure that this young Oklahoma City team that hasn't been there before, felt some pressure instead of being able to have that swagger a lot of young dominant teams would have coming into these things. I think that the moment was too big for Oklahoma City the other day in Indianapolis. I think they probably started celebrating a little prematurely and just kind of took their eye off the ball. They didn't guard the way they'd been guarding.
Yeah, no doubt.
Before. A lot of that had to do with the Pacers playing with a ton of urgency, playing really well. Tyrese Halliburton delivering whenever I figured he was too hurt to, really lead them to a big win. Obviously, I was mistaken. But the Pacers have a great thing going right now, and absolutely they can win. But I think Oklahoma City gets a new energy on their home floor. I think they've been the best team in the league all year long, and I think they bring their best, and they take some lessons from Game 6 in terms of how they lapsed defensively and the effort and energy that kind of slipped on them in Indiana, and I think they probably pull it out. But I'll be rooting for the Pacers, but I think Oklahoma City, you see an entirely different team in that environment, in that situation. But they are young. They have never been there before, and this is what I said from the outset of the series, is that Pascal Siakam's got a ring. Tyrese Halliburton has played in an Eastern Conference Finals. All those Oklahoma City guys jumped right to being the best team in the league before having to work their way up, before having to lose playoff series to get to this spot. The Bulls had to get through the Pistons back in the day. LeBron had to get through a bunch of teams he couldn't get by back before he won his rings, and it felt like Oklahoma City just skipped some steps, and they just went right to the finals. I know they got beat last year by Dallas and things like that, but I don't think it was a deal where you had to endure multiple years of accruing wisdom to get to this spot. So I just think they learned from Game 6, and that gets them through a close game, a tough game, one that's probably won in the last 5 minutes.
All right, well said, and we're going to let you get back to doing what you do well, and that's watching some basketball. Brian, thanks so much. Have safe travels back and forth from Westfield and Carmel and where you're attending this weekend, and we'll look for your stuff next week on the site too on Mike Bobinski and your and Dub's work from this weekend. So thanks so much.
No problem.
Okay, want to thank our sponsor, the Union Club Hotel, Boiler Up Bar 811 Bistro, and of course the Boiler House Prime. We appreciate all that they do as well. And as a reminder, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. And of course, you can leave a positive review or check out our Golden Black Radio for our Golden Black Radio listeners and on YouTube. Use promo code PU1 at checkout when purchasing a monthly subscription to goldenblack.com to get 2 months for just $1. Subscribe to goldenblack.com on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And don't forget to enable alerts. All right. Have a great rest of your weekend. Thanks to all of you. Stay cool for those of you in the Midwest that are going to be in the midst of a heat wave, if you're not already. And maybe we helped you get through a little bit of that. But we appreciate you so much. And we look forward to our next edition of Saturday Simulcast. Also, a reminder, Tuesday, Derek Schultz will be back for Golden Black Radio. We intend to have a Saturday Simulcast just about every Saturday throughout the summer. That we may miss 1 or 2, depending on schedules throughout the course of the late June and July and August. But we appreciate you all taking the time to watch and or listen. And again, have a great and safe, happy first weekend of summer. Take care, all.